It's really early in the morning. It's just not early. It's early in the morning. I've just done Zoom morning prayer. And I should blog, but I need to get started on bulletins for church. And we have a funeral tomorrow. So I'm going to skip 7 quick takes today and just tell you what I figured out about the Eddie Izzard video that I talked about last week, that it's still kind of going around in the back of my mind. And I think I've put my finger on what it is, and in general, what is wrong with virtue signaling. Putting your own virtue on display for other people to see. Because as I've thought about it over the last few weeks, putting your own virtue on display is how human society organizes itself. You have to know who's good and who's bad. Otherwise, we can't have human institutions. We can't have groups of people together if we don't know who we can trust. And letting other people know that you're on the good side rather than on the bad side is a very ancient and normal thing to do. But I think what's different now, and why people like me and others maybe feel uncomfortable or are willing to complain about the idea of virtue signaling in its current iteration, is because virtue itself has changed under our feet in the last 20 years or so. And I think that the rise of social media has contributed to changing virtue, but what counts as virtuous is really what has changed, and that's why we're so uncomfortable. So, and not in, like, I would say, of course, murder is still wrong, lying is still wrong. The basic fundamentals of good moral behavior that are across every culture are still agreed on. But what has changed is the idea that humility, or even meekness as a virtue, is what has changed. It's almost going back to ancient Roman days, where there was no reason to be humble. That was not a cultural value. On the contrary, you needed to signal strength. And that was what counted as goodness. That's why you would have a triumph through the city. Virtue meant good moral behavior did not include humility as part of its world. And so, of course, with the church coming in subsequent centuries, humility became the ground. Even if you didn't feel humble or you weren't humble, you at least had to signal humility as part of virtue. And that's what's disappeared. So Eddie Izzard, in his video, which was so interesting, he's a funny guy, or a funny person, sorry. But for some reason, he felt like it was important for him in the project of making humanity great again to stand up and tell other people what it was that he was doing to make humanity great again. And the things that he was doing were running marathons, doing stand-up comedy in 4 languages, and coming out as trans. That constitutes his good work. But part of the good work that he has to do is that he must tell you about it. That's really new. And I think a few years ago, you would have, first of all, that's not funny. So a funnier thing is to get up and say, to let other people know that you're doing those things in a self-effacing, pseudo-humble way is how we would have done it for 1,000 years now, which allows for good humor. I think that's much funnier to be proud but do it in a way that is if you're humble, is much funnier. That's why humor is over, because to let other people know how good you are is just deadly boring enterprise. There's no room for really funny, for humor in that. That's why, yeah. But the moral project now is that it's not okay not to let other people know that you are good. Also, this is the grand unifying theory, because also that's where politeness have gone. Politeness is wicked because that it constitutes silence. So if you just let somebody else have their opinion without correcting them, you're participating in their wicked works. So it's important that you not do that. It's important that you correct people. That's what moral life now demands. My tea is getting cold, so that's really rotten. So I know that other people have figured this out, but I think the death of humility as a moral virtue is really interesting. And I would say that Christians should not succumb to this. Like, now's the time to be countercultural. I don't care how humble you really are. You should signal your humility, which is that you should not tell other people that you are morally good, no matter how much that's demanded of you. Like, you don't need to get on social media and say, well, I went to this rally, I'm awesome, I'm wearing a mask. Like, just don't give into that. If you have to say that something's good, all the time point beyond yourself or outside of yourself to God, who is good. But I know Christians can't give in. Like, they have to give in to this new morality of personal goodness. So anyway, I know that that's maybe not as earth-shattering for you as it is for me, but it's blown my mind, and now I'm going to write about it. So thanks for watching.